Yo, this story is absolutely insane. After nearly 19 years of marriage, Hollywood's golden couple, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, are officially done. And this isn't just another celebrity breakup. Nicole has filed for divorce, and the court documents confirm a $325 million split. But here's where it gets wild. This isn't your standard we drifted apart type of story. We're talking about a prenup with a cocaine clause, a custody deal that exposes everything without saying a word, and a timeline that proves Nicole was quietly planning this while the world thought their marriage was perfect. Fans are calling this Hollywood's most expensive heartbreak. And when you see what's hidden in the documents, you'll understand why. Let's break down how Nicole Kidman exposed the truth behind her marriage's collapse without saying a single word. September 30th, 2025, TMZ drops the headline. Nicole Kidman files for divorce from Keith Urban. The world freezes because this was the couple everyone thought would make it. 19 years, 2 daughters, 2 global careers. Nicole once said, "We've got a deep, unshakable bond." Well, that bond just shattered. And here's the thing, people close to them say this wasn't sudden. Keith had quietly moved out of their Nashville home months earlier into a separate house nearby. Nicole was in London filming alone when the story broke. It wasn't a screaming match. It wasn't a scandal. It was the slow, quiet death of a relationship that had been cracking for years. Now let's talk numbers because this split is massive. Nicole and Keith's combined fortune is worth around $325 million. Between them, they own 11 properties worth $56 million across the world. A $9 million Nashville mansion, a $6.5 million New York apartment overlooking Central Park, a $16 million Sydney estate, a $4 million Beverly Hills pad. Each home tells a story. Nashville was their family nest. Sydney was Nicole's escape, her connection to her roots. New York was their power couple playground. Now those homes are being divided. Nicole is reportedly keeping the Sydney and New York properties while Keith takes Nashville. But this isn't about emotion, it's strategy. These properties are investments, symbols of power, and now they're leveraging a divorce worth hundreds of millions. And to understand how they protected all that, you've got to look at what might be the most shocking prenup clause in Hollywood history, the infamous cocaine clause. Yeah, it's real. When Keith entered rehab in 2006, just 4 months after they got married, Nicole's legal team added a clause to their prenup that would change everything. It basically said if Keith ever relapsed into cocaine or alcohol use, Nicole could walk away with everything. No payout, no questions asked. If he stayed clean and they split for other reasons, Keith would still walk away with about $11.4 million. That's what's called a built-in insurance policy. Love with a legal safety net. Nicole stood by him during his darkest days, but she also protected herself. That clause shows both devotion and fear. She loved him enough to help him recover, but she didn't trust that recovery enough to risk her future. Has Keith relapsed? Number. He's reportedly been sober for nearly 19 years. But that clause shows exactly how fragile things were from day one. This wasn't a marriage built purely on faith. It was built on caution. Let's talk about the part that really exposes everything. The custody agreement. According to the official parenting plan, Nicole gets their daughters Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret for 306 days a year. Keith gets 59. That means Nicole has the girls 83% of the time and Keith only 17%. That's not co-parenting. That's a visiting schedule. Now, the paperwork doesn't mention substance abuse, doesn't mention danger, doesn't even mention his tour schedule. It just states the numbers, 6 to 59. That alone tells the story. Nicole was the consistent parent. Keith was always away. His touring schedule keeps him gone for months at a time while Nicole's film work brings her home between projects. The custody split didn't cause the divorce. It confirmed it. June 25th, 2025, Nicole and Keith celebrate their 19th wedding anniversary. Matching posts, happy anniversary, baby, fans melt. But what they didn't know, Keith had already signed the custody paperwork 6 weeks earlier. He'd already agreed to see his daughters 59 days a year before those anniversary posts even went up. By August, Nicole signed her part of the deal. Then in September, TMZ broke the news. So for months, they were performing a marriage that was already dead. They still did red carpets. They still posted together. They still smiled for cameras. But legally, they were already living separate lives. That's Hollywood, the illusion of forever until the contract says otherwise. Nicole Kidman is no rookie when it comes to divorce. After what she went through with Tom Cruise, she learned to protect herself. That's why her prenup with Keith was airtight. No spousal support, no shared royalties, no messy financial entanglement. Whatever's in her name stays hers. Whatever's in his name stays his. That's why this divorce looks so clean. There's no battle over money. It's all been pre-decided. When they married in 2006, Nicole was already one of the biggest stars in the world, an Oscar winner, a powerhouse. She wasn't going to risk losing that again. So she had her lawyers create a safety net that could handle anything. Addiction, infidelity, separation. And now, nearly 2 decades later, that same contract is quietly doing its job. This wasn't a dramatic ending. It was an inevitable one. Keith lives on the road. He's performed hundreds of shows over the past few years. His world is touring fans, lights, late nights. Nicole lives in set, London, New York, Sydney, one film after another. For years, they said, "We make it work with FaceTime." But you can't FaceTime your way through a marriage. When Nicole started taking on more daring film roles, like those steamy projects that had fans and critics talking, Keith reportedly started pulling back. Remember that radio interview where the host asked about Nicole's sex scenes and Keith just hung up? Yeah, that awkwardness was real. They weren't fighting over drama. They were fighting over distance, emotional and physical. And eventually that distance won. Here's something a lot of people don't know. Nicole lost her mom, Janelle, in 2024. Her mother's final words to her were, "Take care of yourself, Nikki." Those words hit differently now because just a year later, she's in London alone filming, grieving, and realizing her marriage is falling apart. That's when something shifted. Friends say she stopped trying to fix everything. She stopped performing for the cameras. After almost 20 years of holding her marriage together, she finally decided to take care of herself. And that, more than anything, is what this divorce represents. Nicole stopped playing savior. She chose herself. When the news broke, social media went crazy. Twitter exploded. Some fans called it Australia's 9/11. Others said Keith threw away the best thing to ever happen to him. But not everyone sided with Nicole. Some said she put her career first and that Keith was the one holding it together. And maybe both are true. 2 huge careers, 2 different worlds, 1 marriage that couldn't stretch any further. But here's what's interesting. Neither of them have said a word. No messy statements, no cryptic posts, no interviews, just silence. And that silence is power. It keeps control of the narrative. It keeps the brand clean. Nicole doesn't need to talk. The court filings speak for her. So, what's the truth behind Nicole Kidman's divorce from Keith Urban? It's not scandal, it's structure. Every number in those documents tells a story. The cocaine clause, the 306-59 custody split, the 0 spousal support. It's a marriage that wasn't destroyed overnight. It was dismantled piece by piece. Keith chose the road. Nicole chose stability. And when you look at the facts, Nicole didn't need to expose Keith through interviews or statements. She exposed the truth by how she walked away quietly, cleanly, and completely in control. Let's be real. Divorces like this don't just happen overnight. Sources close to Nicole say the crack started forming way back in 2023, around the time her acting schedule exploded again, and Keith started touring nonstop. You'd see them on red carpets looking perfect, smiling, holding hands. But insiders said that once the cameras were off, they were barely talking. Their marriage had become a business, appear for the cameras, post for the anniversary, protect the brand. By mid-2024, Nicole was in London filming The Perfect Couple, while Keith was in the US doing back-to-back shows. They weren't even living in the same country for months. And according to a friend of the couple, the marriage basically ran on scheduled affection. That's a brutal phrase, but it sums up exactly what happens when fame replaces connection. This wasn't love fading in a week. It was years of distance building until there was nothing left to hold on to. Here's where things get eerie, because this isn't the first time Nicole Kidman has been blindsided by the end of a marriage. Back in 2001, when Tom Cruise filed for divorce, Nicole said she never saw it coming. Her exact words were, "Shocked. It was a shock to my system. She was devastated." She lost daily custody of her adopted kids, Isabella and Connor. That pain stayed with her for decades. Fast forward almost 25 years later, and the pattern's repeating. Another long-term marriage. Another split she reportedly didn't want. Another moment where she's forced to pick up the pieces. The difference this time, she was ready. With Tom, she was powerless. With Keith, she's in control. That's the evolution. Nicole didn't just survive this breakup. She orchestrated it on her own terms. When Nicole and Keith first met back in 2005, the world fell in love with their story. 2 Australians conquering Hollywood, a country boy and a movie star. The chemistry was instant. They married a year later in Sydney. It was the perfect comeback for Nicole. fresh from her divorce with Tom, now finding love with someone real, humble, grounded. But there's the truth. That fairy tale image was the brand. It was good for press, good for PR, good for business. Behind the scenes, Keith was battling addiction and insecurity. Nicole was juggling motherhood, fame, and emotional exhaustion. 19 years later, that perfect love story ends with prenup clauses, property negotiations, and a spreadsheet dividing time with kids. That's the Hollywood illusion. Every fairy tale has-been print, and Nicole and Keith's was written in legal ink from the start. So, what happens next? Nicole Kidman is reportedly staying in Nashville with her daughters, focusing on family and upcoming projects like Practical Magic 2. Keith Urban, meanwhile, is finishing his High and Alive world tour and has been spotted spending more time in LA. No word on new relationships, though. Rumors about a mystery woman on Keith's tour sparked tabloid headlines. Nothing confirmed. And honestly, after a marriage this public, who could blame them for wanting privacy? What's interesting, though, is how both of them are using this moment. Nicole's team has been very deliberate. She's leaning into empowerment, independence, self-care, that strong woman moving on narrative that Hollywood eats up. Keith's camp, on the other hand, is keeping things emotional. Heartbreak, gratitude, personal growth. It's the musician's angle. Turn pain into lyrics. Two different brands, two different stories, same ending. They may have separated as husband and wife, but they're still united in one thing: control of their image. And that's the part the public rarely sees. These breakups aren't just emotional, they're strategic. Every move, every silence, every post, it's all part of the narrative. So, after all the love, the money, the glamour, I tens here. 19 years, $325 million, 11 homes, 2 daughters, no screaming, no scandals, just a quiet, calculated ending to one of Hollywood's most picture-perfect love stories. Nicole Kidman didn't just expose the truth behind her divorce. She exposed how fragile love can be when success becomes the third person in their relationship. And maybe that's the real story here. Love isn't about money, fame, or perfect Instagram posts. It's about showing up. And in the end, only one of them did. So, what do you think? Did Nicole finally take control of her life after years of carrying someone else's pain? Or did this divorce prove that no relationship, no matter how perfect it looks, can survive fame forever? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.